The real crucial point here is the player. And now Gehi has to decide, because the original plan for the defender has always been, let's move in the summer, complete the season at Palace, and then move in the summer transfer window. On a free is a better contract and the opportunity to decide whatever he wants in terms of new club. So to take his time, not having to negotiate club to club on anything. So it's on player side now to decide what he wants to do. Go to City immediately, or maybe wait for a different opportunity. With Liverpool and more clubs, keen eventually on Marc Guehi. So that's going to be a really big story in the upcoming days and weeks, with a decision expected soon by Marc Guehi together with his agents.
Right, in the last hour we heard that Chelsea want Marc Guehi. What can you tell us, Mark?
Yeah, a player that we were speaking about a huge amount over the course of the summer. We know that Newcastle were very interested in Marc Guehi, the Crystal Palace defender. I lost track as to how many offers were rejected. I think there was about 4 of them in the end. I think the biggest totaled £65 million. Newcastle couldn't get their man. He stayed at Selhurst Park and has been an important figure for them in what has been a...
Alex Crook joins us live on the show this morning. Alex, good morning to you. I know we're going into overdrive a bit because of the amount of different things that are going on in the game at the moment. But where do we start? So Liam Rosenior is in at Chelsea. It's a deal that takes him through until 2032. What about Strasbourg, the club he's left?
Yeah, good morning. Well, first and foremost, their supporters are not happy about this turn of events, are they? They've been, for a while, I think, concerned about the hold that Chelsea have on their club, and obviously losing their manager at this stage of the season when they're still competing in Europe, still hoping to qualify for Europe via Liga, and is far from ideal. One very strong contender, I'm told, to replace Rosenior is none other than Gary O'Neill, the former Wolves and Bournemouth manager, who's been looking to get back into management, was pretty close, actually, to taking the Wolves job before a last-minute change of heart. And obviously Rob Edwards is in situ there now. I think he spoke to Norwich City in the Championship as well. But I think this is a good opportunity for someone like Gary O'Neill to go and rebuild their career away from the limelight, maybe, that you would get in the scrutiny if you were a Premier League manager. And of course, in the case of Rosenior, it's helped him get a plum job at Chelsea and an incredible 6-year contract. Whether he sees it out, Rosenior, I think is probably open to debate.
What do you make of that, Simon? Gary O'Neill, if he does well at Strasbourg, he could end up at Stamford Bridge.
Yeah, that's a leap, isn't it? But then someone would say that for Liam. It's interesting to rebuild his career, because his career really is very fragmented, isn't it? It's really a very short period of time at Bournemouth, where he steadied the ship after Scott Parker had his little outburst, and then got fired by the American owner that took on Bournemouth and has now built it and brought the Iriola in. Yeah. He then went to Wolves, 1 year at Wolves as a success, and then got pinned at Wolves. So his management career consists of about 2 years. He's got to rebuild.
Yeah. So would he count himself lucky if he got offered the Strasbourg job? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What is the situation, the latest as you know it, Alex, regarding Marc Guehi? I've read a fair bit this morning about him at Palace, of course. But what's going on with the clock ticking?
Well, Manchester City have got big injury issues in defence. Ruben Diaz is out, and Joško Guardiola, a long-term absentee with a leg fracture. Looks like he probably won't play again this season. First and foremost, that might impinge on Nathan Ake's hopes of a move away. He's not started too many games in the Premier League this season. There's a lot of interest in him from Crystal Palace, ironically Bournemouth, Newcastle have been mentioned to me, as well as clubs in Europe. But I think Pep Guardiola would be reluctant to let him go. But it does bring Marc Guehi into the conversation as far as Manchester City are concerned. He's out of contract, as we know, at the end of the season. So Palace have got a big decision to make. Do they cash in on their captain now? And maybe that puts at risk their chances of European qualification via the Premier League and maybe going deep in the Conference League as well? Or do they risk letting him run down his contract and lose him on a free transfer in the summer? I get the sense that if Steve Parish has his way, they'll cash in now, and Manchester City very much a potential destination.
And you'd do the same if you were Parish, Simon?
Well, I would have tried to do that in the summer, probably, knowing what I was going to confront it with. There's also a third part of this particular will, which is the player's wishes, because the player doesn't necessarily need to be transferred at this moment in time, because the moment the player gets transferred, he takes more money off the table for himself. So if Manchester City are, because of needs must, wheedled into a corner where they pay 30 million quid and send Ake the other way to Palace, so Palace get the centre-half problem fixed by selling Gehi, getting some money for him, Gehi's £30 million off the table that he could have had in his contract, because there's no transfer fee in the summer. Yeah. But also the player and his situation and what he thinks he can get out of a contract and what his agents think they'll be able to monetise him in the summer rather than now is a third part of the equation that needs to be factored in.
Let's stick with Manchester City. Am I right? Semenyo to Manchester City. Is this getting closer then, Alex?
Yeah, this one's been dragging on. I think we all expected it to reach a conclusion, maybe sooner than it has. But actually, speaking to sources at Bournemouth this morning, they tell me it was always part of the plan that he would play these first 3 games of the new year, concluding at home to Tottenham tomorrow. A game Bournemouth need to win, really, because it's been a while since they picked up 3 points. And then, with his release clause expiring on January the 10th, he would make that big money move to Manchester City. So I think this one will happen. The contract is still being finalised, I think, with the agents and the lawyers, but it will be the end of a long farewell for Semenyo against Tottenham tomorrow. But credit to him, because I think a lot of players in his position could have been forgiven for downing tools, maybe not wanting to put the move in jeopardy by risking injury. He was actually on 4 yellow cards for quite a while, and a 5th booking would have seen a 1-match suspension, but he's been keen to avoid that. So I think this is a sign of the character that Manchester City are getting. Simon will probably say, well, he's just doing his job. But if you compare Semenyo's conduct to that of Alexander Isak and maybe Johan Wissa in the summer, it's chalk and cheese.
Would you like to praise Antoine for doing his job?
Doing his job, yeah. Yes, I think, but in the comparison of a very low bar, which often is the case for footballers, that he should be praised because he's doing his job. In the instance of the other guys, they should be criticised for not doing theirs.
What about West Ham against Forest tonight, Alex? I noticed that West Ham have picked up Castellanos for 26 million from Lazio and Pablo, 17 million from Gil Vicente in Portugal. So where does that leave our friend Callum Wilson?
Seems a big risk, doesn't it? Particularly in the case of Castellanos, who I think he's only scored 2 goals in Serie A this season, and West Ham have a history of spending decent money on strikers and not really working out. Nicholas Füllkrug, the latest example in quite a lengthy list. In terms of Callum Wilson, I think he's looking to leave now, and he's got reason, because obviously he's on a pay-as-you-play deal. He's seen 2 strikers brought in, probably will knock him down the pecking order, which means he's not going to pick up his wages. We know there was interest from Saudi Arabia in the summer. I think there'll be plenty of Championship interest and maybe lower-end Premier League as well. But yeah, Callum, I think, knows his days at West Ham are probably numbered.
Whilst I loathe this subject, is there any intelligence around the likely future of the West Ham manager? Because I see things and hear things that his job is in threat, that he's in real jeopardy there. Because it's curious to see if they're buying players and the manager's job is in jeopardy, how is that working for West Ham?
They're also buying players attached to a certain George Mendes, who just happens to be the agent of Nuno Espirito Santo.
Right.
So it does seem like they're backing him. It does seem like they want to keep the faith. But then there's always stories, Simon, coming out of West Ham that maybe David Sullivan is having second thoughts. Did he make the right decision? I think his record, actually, in his first, 14 games in charge is worse than Graham Potter's. And obviously they pulled the trigger on Potter in the end. So I would never say never with West Ham. And actually another story I've done on my transfer notebook today surrounds the goalkeeper Mads Hermansen. And this sort of sums up how West Ham is being run at the moment. They signed him for £15 million from Leicester at the insistence of Graham Potter. Then they fired Graham Potter soon afterwards. He's only played 4 Premier League games, and now they're trying to move him on.
Alex, thanks very much indeed. Alex will be with us throughout the week, of course, as it hots up in the world of transfers.
That's what happens when you give managers authority over transfers.
Yes, oh, I know. I thought you'd get your word in on that one. That was thanks to Intuit QuickBooks. Search QuickBooks, and you can find out more.
Who doesn't love the Ryder Cup, the competition that ignites and unites the greats of golf like no other? 1927 brought us the very first edition at the Worcester Country Club in Massachusetts. For the first 22 editions, when it was just British and Irish golfers versus the US, America were only beaten 3 times. But in 1979, in came Europe, and in came Seve Ballesteros, who went on to win 5 of them. Since Team Europe became a thing, the head-to-head reads Europe 13, USA 9. Europe's last away win was the miracle at Medina in 2012. America hasn't won on European soil since 1993 at the Belfry. So what about the money? The most recent Ryder Cup in Rome drew in a record 271,000 spectators and boosted the Italian economy by €262 million. The PGA of America TV deal with NBC is worth $440 million, but 2025 will be the first time ever that the US team will receive a fee for playing. Of course, in Rome, legend has it Patrick Cantley refused to wear his cap because he wasn't being paid to wear it, though he insisted it simply didn't fit. Either way, Team Europe have made it clear they're more than happy to keep playing for the thrill, joy and prestige of the Ryder Cup.